Hey everyone! I'm here in Hollywood with Ted Live, and we are doing a live simulcast broadcast of Ted Live's podcast, Learning Not to Swear. We'll wait a couple of minutes for everyone to join in. We'd love to get some of your comments and questions. We're doing this live. It's going to be on Ted's podcast forever. Yes. So if you get on, we'll shout you out. We'll answer your questions from all over the world. There's a lot that went on this week.
It's a big week.
And
big week.
I'm really happy to be here to talk to you guys. And Ted has some wonderful thoughts as usual.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. It's 10 a.m. here in LA. Well, what, 11?
It's
almost 11.
It's almost 11.
It's 11 a.m. Ted always has me out here.
Early in the morning.
I'm like, Ted, does it have to be 10 a.m.?
I'm a bit older than she is, so as the day wears on, I become less energetic. So I'm at my best in the AM hours.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Janice is on. Hello. We're going to try to look at your comments and questions.
He
can't
read
see.
That.
He's
I
old.
Read
I'm going to be more old tomorrow, by the way.
Goodness.
But, so we're going to try to, thank you, Darren. We're going to try to look at your questions, but this is also a podcast, Learning Not to Swear. So we're on the radio,
I'm about to hit the button on the podcast in a moment, and then that'll go to the internet, and then you'll be able to, if you want to hear it again, if you're in your car,
you'll be able to hear this over and over again. Yes. So if we take your question, you're going to be on Ted's podcast.
You'll be good to go.
Hi, Nikki Al. I love you, Nikki Al. I love you, my mother Janice. Hi. Great. So if you guys have questions, please send them in.
Where's your mom? Where is she?
She's in Arizona.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Carlo. Thank you. Thank you, Carlo. He said happy early 29th birthday. Yeah, so.
That sounds right.
Right, 29.
You totally pull it off.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a huge week, and then to top it off, tomorrow's my birthday. So this is my birthday eve. So I was like, Ted, we got to do a birthday edition, and on top of that,
it's all of it. Your birthday, the anniversary of Michael's passing, and then his father passed just days ago. So it's been a big week.
It's been an emotional roller coaster.
Yes, it has. All right, I'm gonna hit play here.
Okay, Ted's gonna hit record on his podcast, so everything from here forward is going.
Yes, I'm gonna
on
do
tape
my
forever.
Little
so forever
intro.
Hold our peace.
Join us. It's never too late. Hi, welcome to Learning Not to Swear with Ted Light. I'm your host, Ted Light. This is the podcast where we talk about life and the challenges of life and the joy and the struggle and the rewards and just the constant digging to keep moving forward in life. Today I'm joined with Shana Mangatal, the lovely author of an actual book. I've always wanted to write a book, and she's done it. And she's not only has she done it, but she's done it about one of the most cherished characters in my whole existence, Michael Jackson. It's called Michael and Me. It's about her relationship with Michael, her rather secret romance with Michael Jackson. And I listened to it on Audible.com, which I highly recommend, because I'm a lazy reader. I like to listen to stuff while I'm in the car and while I'm walking my dog. So my dog, whose name is also
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. There you go. My dog's name is Michael. I found him the day after Michael Jackson died.
Stop.
We were walking. I was walking my other dog, who's recently passed, and this dog came up and was lost and had no owner, and we took him home, and I was so heartbroken. It was the day after Michael died, so I was just so sad. And then we found this dog, brought him home, and named him Michael Jackson.
Wow.
Michael Jackson, King of Poop, is his name. So, but he's a great dog.
I met Michael Jackson earlier, and he was such a snob. Like, he wouldn't even say hi to me.
Yes, because he was a street dog. I think he was on the street for probably like 30 days, 40 days when we found him. He'd been lost.
Aww.
And so he's really kind of skittish and standoffish.
Aww.
He barked at my wife for literally like 3 weeks. When she would come home from work, he would bark at her like she was trying to rob the place. For 3 weeks. She had to sit him on the sofa and feed him treats for like an hour. No, for like an hour.
Poor baby.
Before he would stop barking at her.
I am obsessed with dogs. I'll just tell you that right now.
Really?
I don't have a dog of my own, but I just feel so connected to dogs because they're just so, they love unconditionally.
Yes.
And they're just so sweet, and I love dogs.
I love them too. They're I want another one because I want a companion for Michael, but they're so much work. They just demand so much attention.
That's true. They're like a child. They're like a small child.
You gotta take care of them. So
yeah.
That's my wife. I'm saying I want a dog, and my wife's like, no, stop saying that. You don't want a dog. I know you. You just gotta. And she's right. I'll be happy for like a day, and then I'll be like, God damn it, he won't leave me alone. But I want Michael to have a companion because I know when we all leave the house, he's sad. He's lonely because he's by himself.
They have separation anxiety.
They do. He's been very good. He hasn't chewed anything or done anything horrible. But yeah, I agree. I think that so.
How old is he? Do you know?
When we got him, Michael's been gone for 9 years or 8 years now.
9 years. Michael's been gone.
So he's probably 10 then, because the vet said he was probably about a year old when we found him.
Aww.
So he's about 10 years old. So he's getting to be a cranky old man like me.
But we still love you, Ted.
Thank you.
We love your crankiness.
Well, it's my trademark. It's all I have going. So listen, let's talk about you a little bit. Let's talk about this book. So I listened to it, and you actually do the reading when
I did the reading, the whole thing.
What was that like? Was that grueling?
It's difficult. You think, okay, it's my book, it's my story, so it's going to be easy to read this. No. It's a whole nother talent that you need to be able to read an entire book on audio.
How long did it take?
It only took a week. It only took a week.
Yeah, it would have taken me at least 3 weeks.
Well, the thing is when you're under contract, you're only being contracted to do it for a week. So you kind of have to get it done no matter what. Okay. So I was really nervous. I was like, how am I going to do this? But once you get into it, and if you listen to like the later chapters, I probably sound a little more comfortable than the earlier chapters because
I noticed that. Yes.
You noticed
it? You settled in. Yeah, you settle in. You do. You settle in. You settle in. But it's all good. So how many hours a day? In a day?
It was a long day. It was at least 8 hours every day for a week that we did this book, and it was just me in the studio alone in a recording studio, reading my life. And it's crazy. I had written the book, so you write it, but that's kind of a quiet process. It's you're in your own head, in your own mind. But when you're saying these things out loud, it takes on a whole other meaning and emotion, and you're really reliving it, for yourself when you're reading your life out loud.
Yeah. It
was a really surreal experience. So I'd love it if you guys
I recommend it.
Get the audio. But a lot of people, it's funny because most people that have written me have listened to it on the Audible.com version. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's like the thing now, Audible and Kindle.
Yeah.
More so than the hard copy book.
My wife and I swear by Audible. It's on our phones and we can download books, all types of books. And if you're in traffic, I promise you, if you're in traffic, you'll be so thankful to have it. And if you're walking your dog or if you're just going out for exercise or walk, you can listen to music, and music is great. But after a while, how many times can you listen to music? The same type of music or whatever. So hearing different stories is just such a relief. And I recommend this book, and I recommend Audible.com.
Thank you, Ted.
I do. I recommend it.
That means a lot.
So all right, so let's
Oh, first of all, thank you for having me back. This is, how many times have I been here?
This is your third time?
Third time's a charm.
We tend to meet on around this time of the year.
That's true.
To discuss because I'm like a huge Michael Jackson fan.
He is.
I'm huge. My son's name is Jackson. If you doubt me at all, my dog's name is Michael Jackson, and my son's name is Jackson. So that tells you, I'll never forget, just the first time laying eyes on him and the Jackson 5, and it just changed my life, changed me.
Did you see them on Ed Sullivan?
I did. I remember seeing them on Ed Sullivan show and just being mesmerized. Everyone knows, back then there were no black superheroes.
They were our superheroes. They were the Black Kennedys. They were our everything in the 70s.
Yes. So there were no black superheroes. So when he burst on the scene with that energy and that voice, it was just there was nothing like it. So I was, hypnotized like every Michael Jackson fan, just hypnotized. And then the cartoon came out, and you couldn't
every Saturday morning.
You couldn't tell me nothing.
Yeah, every Saturday morning it would first be the Jackson 5 cartoon.
Yeah.
Then Soul Train would come on after that, and then American Bandstand.
American Bandstand.
That was we had that to look forward to every single Saturday, and it was just so exciting because I don't know about you, but I wasn't living here in Hollywood.
Where were you?
I was in the Washington, D.C. area,
I
Maryland.
was back in Akron, Ohio. That's where I'm from. So, yeah.
So we were dreaming of being here in Hollywood, basically. And here we are, basically,
finally.
by the way. Finally. But, when you're in a small town and you're watching these shows like Soul Train and American Bandstand, you're thinking, wow, look at those teenagers. They're dancing. They live in Hollywood.
And he was from a small town. He started out in a small town, too. He's from,
right.
Gary, Indiana is even smaller town than Akron, Ohio. And so, he the fact that he was able to, burst out and persevere. And
thanks to his father.
Well, yeah, okay.
Joe Jackson.
Joe passed on the
27th, and that was it's been a crazy week because June 25th was the anniversary of Michael's passing, the 9th anniversary.
Right.
And
so that's 2 days.
2 days later, his father passes away. And I had a feeling it was going to happen like either on June 25th or somewhere around that time because, that's just the way things happen. It seems to be in the Jackson world. It's always something like extraordinary that happens.
What was your relation? You knew this? I saw some photos of you and Joe.
Oh.
So you obviously know Joe or did know Joe.
Yeah, I'm very thankful to Joe because when my book came out, he heard about it, and he specifically wanted to meet with me so he could endorse the book.
Really?
Yes.
Not because you're beautiful and thought maybe
smack
you on your behind.
He was like 87, 88 by that point, but he was
still
Joe.
Let me explain something to you. That never dies. That never
That's
dies.
true.
The desire to spank a beautiful woman on her behind never dies.
No, he was really interested in the book.
All right, okay.
Ted.
Okay. I have my questions, my suspicions, but okay, all right.
So he was told about the book, and he was really happy that I'd written it. So his people set it up for me to go meet with him in Las Vegas, so that we could, have a real sit down and just, talk about the old times.
Okay.
And he also tweeted on his Twitter and a support tweet for my book. And
that was very cool.
Thank you.
Very cool of him.
Yeah, and even though he was in his late 80s, he was still very connected to social media. He wasn't there typing the Twitter. I'll let you know that. He was not there on Twitter typing, but he would dictate things he wanted to say to his management team and things like that. So he was very aware of Twitter, of Instagram, and of Facebook. So yeah, he was a pretty hip 87, 88.
Yeah, to say, listen, I'm not going to be dealing with this directly, but I'm aware of it, and to have your staff plug you in when you need to be plugged in, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it meant so much to me because when that tweet went out, I was thinking, okay, yeah, Joe doesn't know anything about this. The management tweeted it. Okay, it's great, but come on now. But then when he called to meet with me, I was like, oh my God, he really did.
Right.
He really did, approve of this tweet and really wanted to support me in my book.
What did he say? Did he say anything to you that sticks in your head that you remember?
Oh my God. So we get there. I took one of his other friends with me, Basim, who is this wonderful photographer. We drove to Vegas, and we get there, and immediately, because we were going to drive back that evening.
Okay.
And it's about 4.5 hours from LA to Vegas. And Joe was like, you're not driving back anywhere. You're staying right here, with me. You're not going back. So he took us on a tour of the house that Michael's estate had just bought for him. Yeah, because I guess he didn't like his last house, and Michael's estate made sure that he was taken care of in this beautiful new house. And he was so proud of it.
So
so
let me
proud.
get this straight. So you were trying to leave, and Joe Jackson said, "You ain't going nowhere." Is that
He
what I just heard?
did. Yeah, he was like, "Come on, I'm going to show you your room."
It sounds different when I say it than when you say it. So he showed you your room.
Immediately, he was like, "Let me show you where you're going to be sleeping tonight." So he had a guest room for me.
Right.
And then Basim, who brought his mother with him, who has Alzheimer's, by the way, they had their own room as well. So we each had our own room. It was like, it was so comfortable. It was nice. But that was the first thing that he did. He was like, "This is where you're staying tonight," you know.
So tell me about the room. Did it have what kind of bed was it? Was it like a big plush bed? Or?
Yeah, it was very, nice, plush. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and it was just him. Like, there was no one else there with him, but he did have caretakers and a chef. And the chef had a meal ready for us right as we arrived. Yeah, it was like going to visit Michael at Neverland. He was the same way. You get there, the chef immediately asks you what you want for lunch, and the chef prepares it. And his father Joe was the same exact way.
To me, that is one of the number one, outside of the money and everything else, that having someone to just prepare. If I never had to make another sandwich in my life, that would be so awesome.
Right.
Just to be like,
I agree.
I know that when you get home, whatever you want will be prepared. Oh.
That's the other good thing about being an actress or an actor.
Yeah.
Like, I remember doing Michael Jackson's films. I did 2 short films. One was Ghosts and another was Is This Scary? So you wake up early in the morning. You usually have to get there at like 7 in the morning. Immediately you get there and you go to the makeup trailer. So they do your makeup. Then you go to the hair trailer. They do your hair. And so every day you're having all these people working on you, pampering you,
and praise you, and reassure your confidences.
Making sure you look perfect every day. Yeah. And I'm like, gosh, if I could only have this like every day in my real life, how heavenly would that be?
I don't know if I could handle it. It would turn, because some celebrities turn into monsters. You know what I mean? they get coddled and praised so much that they just kind of lose their mind. I think I might be one of those people who just turns into this.
You would be like a monster?
I think I've been sitting here for 5 minutes and you haven't told me how handsome I am.
You're handsome, Ted, and those eyeglasses look really cute on you.
that would be everywhere I would go. No one has told me I'm handsome yet. So, geez, Ted, every day do we have to tell you that? So yeah, that's the thing that you have to fight in celebrity, is not letting your head get
not to let it get
around.
Twisted. Yeah. It is easy because, I mean, even just being in the Michael Jackson world, let's take away the music videos, but just being in his world, you're in a bubble. And you are in that bubble, and everything with Michael and surrounding him is your entire world.
Yes. So
you don't even realize what's going on outside of the world.
Right.
And when you get outside of that world, it's kind of a, it's a different experience.
Okay. That's one of the problems I think I see. I think there was, I don't want to say harmful for Michael, but I think it's harmful it's the harmful thing that I was describing about myself, is that when you get too isolated and you get too addicted to a certain, temperature that you set in your bubble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Eddie Murphy's another example. I love Eddie Murphy, but he went through a phase where he was just making all these just ridiculous movies, horrible, ridiculous movies. You're like, why are you doing? What are you doing? Go back and watch Beverly Hills Cop and think about what you're doing now. But I think that the thing there is that there's no one in his bubble to tell him.
Yeah, because you have nothing
stop.
but yes men around you.
No one
if you say no, they're going to fire you. Yeah. Let's face it. So
how do you go up and honestly say, from a place of love and concern, I think this is a bad idea?
You don't. Unless you don't. I mean, if you're like a friend, even then you can't do it, because a star's ego is, their whole career is based on their ego, because you're in the business of you. When you're an actor, when you're a singer, you have to believe in yourself. And if you have outside forces coming in and being, as we would think, negative, even though they might be being truthful, we think they're being negative.
Negative, exactly. Yeah. And that's the line that is hard for them to determine which side of these comments are falling on. Are they falling on a negative side or are they falling on a truthful side?
Right.
And most times people become defensive and they just assume it's negative.
Right, and you cut that person out because you don't want any negative. We get enough negativity from the public. We don't want it from our friends or people that we think are supporting us, our managers. I don't have a manager, but Michael had management. And after a while, he started being paranoid of them because sometimes they weren't agreeing with his decisions.
Right.
And, that's when he would fire them, when suddenly they weren't on the same page because they were trying to steer him in the direction that they felt was best.
Right.
So that's I think that's the issue and problem with a lot of huge celebrities.
Yeah, I think it's the problem with. I think that's the root of all any artist or genius who falls on difficulty or hard times is usually based on the fact that they've stopped trusting people and they don't have anyone that they feel that they can trust. I think that goes to Elvis. I think you can point to Eddie. I think you can point to Marilyn Monroe. People that but eventually found themselves isolated and without people they felt they can trust, and then that led to a descent.
And it always leads to a descent. Have you noticed? Like that's just the story. That's just what's gonna happen. We can predict it.
Yeah, Howard Hughes is another example of a guy who he had some more profound mental illness, but he still isolated himself instead of trusting that he could get help.
Yeah.
And so I think that's their big risk is how do you I think that most successful people have wives or husbands that they truly trust and who truly have their best interest.
Yeah, and if you have that, that's what you need. You need that. You need your mother. You need if you have your father in your life, you need that family support. Because they're going to tell you the truth, hopefully, and have your best interests at heart. Or if you have a wife, or if you have kids, But if you don't have that support system, you're in trouble. Yeah,
and I could see especially with Michael, because he had been kept in a bubble so long where he didn't get to make any of his own decisions. He wasn't in charge of any of the music. He wasn't in charge of writing any of the songs.
Yeah.
He was at the mercy of the label and his parents or his management and his dad. And so once he broke free, once he met Quincy and broke free with Off the Wall, the trajectory was up in his mind. It was like up.
Right.
Now I'm in charge, and I'm look how great I'm doing because I'm in charge, and I'm making decisions that that catapult me, and rightfully so. But then there comes a point where that levels off, and now you might need a little more collaboration.
Well, I was fortunate enough to work with him during his last good management phase.
Okay.
He never had a good manager after Sandy Gallen and Jim Morey, who were my bosses. It was almost the entire 90s. And the team that he had around him was so solid. Everyone was professional, experienced, and they all had his best interests at heart. Okay. And if you notice, after the History album, History tour, which is when he fired us, his career started, going a little off there. Right. And it was because he didn't have that good team around him anymore. An artist is only as good as their team. Yeah. You can't do it on your own. You really can't. It takes an entire town to support someone of that magnitude. Right. And I think a lot of times when an artist becomes as big as they are, they forget that. They start blaming all of their problems on their team.
On someone else.
When a lot of times it's them.
Yeah. I believe that's true. I think that once you stop, once it becomes difficult for you to hear other voices, then you're in trouble. I know that, I'm married. I've been married almost 28 years. And, I don't know where I would be if my wife wasn't there to just say, I don't even know what you're talking about right now. I don't even know why you're saying these things. You're talking like a crazy person. Go for a walk and that's what you need sometimes is that, you got the devil on one shoulder and hopefully the reasonable voice over here trying to talk you down and say, just because you want to burn everything up, just because you think setting your skull on fire is going to be a good idea right now, I'm here to tell you that there's another option.
And that's why I love when Michael was still with his brother and his family.
What about Quincy? Do you think Quincy was a good influence on him?
He created masterpieces and classics. I think musically he was wonderful for him.
But I mean, just the age difference.
I think it was great. You know, Quincy was a legend. He's been in this industry forever. And Michael at that time was very young, even though he was also a veteran. You know, musically, Quincy brought a lot to what he was doing. Michael was able to write lots of hit songs, but he needed Quincy to sort of bring it all together, bring in the best musicians. I don't think people understand what a producer does. You know, Quincy was there hiring the greatest musicians possible, pretty much being the conductor of the recording sessions, and that made a big difference.
So do you think he was able to do any of that conducting on a personal level, as far as trying to steer Michael off in a certain direction?
I don't think so. Just judging from Quincy's comments
lately. His most recent comments were pretty negative.
They were negative,
which I was very disappointed by, because when the album was pushing money and making money, he had nothing bad to say about Michael.
Nothing bad. But when you get older, as we all know, we get a little bit more blunt, and we don't care what people are saying. Yes. I'm not at that age yet.
No, I am. When she leaves, I'm going to walk around the house and talk about Shana Mangatal. I don't know what her problem is. Right. Sometimes she just...
Right. The stuff she was saying. But can you imagine you're like 85, you don't care, what people are thinking of you, or you're just sprouting off out the mouth, off at the mouth.
One of the criticisms that stuck out in my mind that Quincy said was that there was people that Michael robbed songs from people, or ideas for songs from people, and then didn't refuse to pay them.
That was the most ridiculous thing that he said, because he was in the studio with him. If he felt that Michael was stealing Billy Jean from somebody, then Quincy could have said, "Hey, Donna Summer, I know I produced your last album, and I produced this last song that Michael has so-called stolen from you. Michael, don't steal this song from Donna, because I produced it. I was in the studio with her. Why didn't he say that then?
Yeah, and I'm going to make sure that she gets paid for the song.
Exactly.
I have the power to make sure she gets paid for the song.
Yeah, so that was the craziest thing he said. Yeah. I respect him so much that I respect whatever he said. He said it. Those are his opinions. Yeah. But there's some things that he said that just really didn't make sense.
Well, it just seemed like bad form to come out at this stage.
And Billie Jean, of all songs, that I remember being...
So he said specifically that
Billie
Jean stole
that he stole it from Donna Summer, yeah. I remember being like 14 years old, and the first time it ever played on the radio, and even in my 14-year-old mind, I was thinking, oh my God, this is the most unique song.
Yeah, I've never heard anything like it before.
I've ever heard in my life. Michael's vocals, his lyrics.
That
it was mysterious. It was powerful, right?
Whenever anybody hears that right there, you just go...
Just those opening lines, the opening drum beat. Yeah.
Dun.
Exactly. So that was all Michael. Without Michael adding his stuff onto it, it would have never been the classic that it was. So no one can say he took that from anybody.
Yeah. Well, I would have to hear this song that he's talking about. There's no Donna Summer song that comes to mind that even resembles. God bless her. She had some great songs.
I love Donna Summer.
Yeah.
I love disco.
Some great songs.
Yeah.
Last Dance, Last Chance.
Oh, I love Last Dance. Yeah. I love Thank God It's Friday, the movie. Do you remember that?
Yes, I saw that in the theater.
You did?
I saw it in the theater, and it's cheesy now, but it was so appropriate for the time.
State of Independence, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what it was. So back to Joe Jackson.
Go ahead. Okay. 15 tangents later. No. I'm sorry.
So he was so hospitable, so generous, made sure we were taken care of, and made sure that I did not have to drive all the way back to LA. He was just the sweetest guy. And in my mind, I'm thinking, this is the man that, has had so many bad things said about him. How can this be? He's just the sweetest, nicest guy ever. At this point. Now, mind you, he was, 87 at that point. But
when Michael said, that time was when Michael said that, he said he was abused and his dad beat him and was emotionally, abusive to him. I haven't liked him ever since then. I was just like, oh, I'm done with you. Because in my mind, child abuse is always bad. I have 2 kids. I don't abuse them, even no matter how much I think they deserve it sometimes.
What do? You give them timeouts, or how do you discipline them?
No matter how much I think they deserve a little abuse, and my abuse might be appropriate, I never do it. They get timeouts, and they get talked to. They get things explained to them. And, any human being who's not a sociopath, and that's when you kind of can curb that sociopath tendency, is by cutting it nipping it in the bud by talking to them and explaining things. Mm-hmm. And Daddy has feelings, and Mama has feelings, and you have feelings. So if you make me say something to you over and over again, you make me sad. And
see, Joe wasn't that kind of communicator.
Yeah.
He was even when I was with him, he was kind of abrupt.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he wasn't as articulate as you seem to be.
And I try to be. I certainly try to be. But the thing about that was, the thing that still makes me resentful of Michael's story and his relationship with his dad, is that what I get from Michael in particular is that there was a boy who was eager to please. You could just see that in his performances, even as a boy, even as a young boy. So I can't imagine any scenario where he needed to be beat or talked down to or abused. He always seemed so eager to be on that stage and willing to perform and capable. So it didn't seem to me that there would be a situation where he wasn't ready to go.
So your parents, which was around the, sort of that same time period, they didn't beat you?
Oh, no, I got my butt whooped, but I was asking for it. I was no Michael Jackson.
We don't know what Michael was doing. Maybe he was bad.
No.
They were in Gary, Indiana. That's not the best of places. It's a rough city.
Let me just say, I was no Michael Jackson. But I only got maybe, my whole youthful career, I maybe got four spankings, 4 whoopings in my life.
With a belt?
My mom was a Switch fan. Every now and then she would go to the belt. But, so I got maybe three whoopings from her and 1 from my dad. My dad had an extension cord.
Oh, now those hurt.
Which was a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I got spanked by him under completely false.
You didn't do wrong.
I didn't do anything. Time. I got framed.
Oh, you got framed.
Framed, and he didn't. There was no trial. There was no. Nothing. It's just like, I heard you did this. Wait a minute. So that was crazy.
But you learned your lesson, though, didn't you? Look at the fine gentleman you are today. It's because of those spankings.
I didn't learn.
If they put you simply in timeout, you wouldn't be this fine gentleman you are today.
The lesson I learned from the one with my dad was that life is truly unfair. That was the first time it dawned on me that life is just unfair. If this is happening to you when you know you didn't do anything wrong, yeah. So, but with that, the other thing that taught me about my dad in that situation is that it's about his issues that he has to work out in his head that would make him come in and do this to a kid without talking to the kid first. So he's got some kind of,
I mean, we emulate how we were raised.
True.
So Joe was raised that way, and that's all he knew. They were pretty young when they had all of those kids.
Yeah, ABC, I Want You Back, Stop the Love You Save.
And he wanted better for their kids, for his kids, for Catherine's kids. And that was the way that he saw it was going to happen, and it worked. Whatever you say, it worked. We don't know if Michael would have been the superstar. I mean, just my experiences with Michael. He talked about his father a lot, and it was never, ever negative.
Really?
He would always remember things that his father told him, or things that his father did with him, and he would laugh and joke. It was never negative. So the things that his father taught him stayed with him for the rest of his life.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the other things that Michael spoke about, and I'm not downplaying that at all. But there were positive things that, people seem to forget sometimes. And when I was talking to Michael, he was telling me the funny stories, the good stories.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so LaToya, I saw like a little thing on the news. There was like a documentary playing, and they were going over, Michael Jackson's life, and of course they cut to the LaToya chapters, and man, oh man. So she was saying, so our father, put hot matches on our feet while we were sleeping. Have you heard that
I believe he did that because
have you heard that one?
I've heard that one, and I believe it because when I did stay there, it was about a year and a half ago. I had my own room
with hot matches on your feet.
Not hot matches, but so I went into my room. It was time to go to sleep. I closed the door and I locked it. Just for no reason. I wanted my privacy.
You're a young girl by yourself. You're not trying to get videotaped while you're sleeping. At least.
Hey. So I locked my door, and then when I woke up the next morning, Joe was already fully dressed in an immaculate outfit. By the way, he always had on his police badge on his belt, and I can't remember if he was carrying a gun, but he was obsessed with guns. He had like a whole cabinet full of guns, and he was very proud of his gun collection.
You might have been better off driving your ass home.
Stop.
I'm sorry.
No. He had the police badge, and I can't remember if he actually carried a gun, but yeah, he was into guns. So anyway, so I walk into the living room. He's sitting there, and he says, "Oh, so how did you sleep?" I said, "I slept so well. Thank you. Your bed is so comfortable. Everything's so comfortable." He said, "Oh well, I snuck into your room last night."
No.
And I watched you while you slept.
No.
I said, "No, you did not, because I locked my door." So he was kidding, that's how he was.
He?
Yes, he was.
You don't think he has keys? You don't think he has keys to every lock in the house?
Because he was asleep when I went to sleep.
You don't think what's the matter with you?
87.
What's the matter
when
with
he's
you?
asleep, he's asleep.
I think.
Okay?
Let me ask for every listener here. What's the matter with you? If you believe that,
no, he did.
You believe that he don't have nobody to wake him. Listen, I need you to wake me up at 3:00
No.
and guide me to that girl's room.
No. That's just how he was.
Right,
he liked to tease you. And
right.
At first I was thinking, oh my God, did I lock my door? I was worried for a second there because he's like, yeah, I watched you while you were asleep. But I locked my door, so he was kidding with me. So I think that's what he did. He would just like
it's
tease
his house. He could have keys to it.
There were no keys to bedroom doors.
Okay, if you say so. You don't think he's rich enough to invent some doors? I need you to install locks that I can open with a tap of my finger from the outside.
No.
Just put my thumb on it and go. I'm gonna be having a lot of good-looking girls I need to watch.
Stop! No, Ted Lee.
All right. I'm sorry, but I'm suspicious.
Nikki,
Where's
your
Nikki
mind
from?
went to 2300 Gutter Street, Ted.
I apologize.
Yeah, no, but that is how he was, and I would assume he never changed, and he was like that when they were kids. He would just tease you,
Okay.
and sometimes it wasn't even true, but he would make you think it was true, and so then you're like a little bit worried,
And to me, that is a horrible thing to do to a child. To instill uncertainty into that child's psyche is. I watch there's videos on like Facebook. There'll be a video of parents like just jumping out and scaring their kids.
Oh,
and I'm always like, why? What are you doing to that baby? You're making little marks in his brain that he's not going to be able to.
But Michael was like that too. He loved to tease people. He and his father had a lot of similar traits, all the good traits. Like Michael was very stern in business. He was like just to the point, like get it done. This is what I want, and you better do it. And I know he got that from Joe.
Right.
And also his sense of humor, like all day. I spent 2 days with Joseph, and all day long, all he was doing was teasing me. Anything he could find, he would tease me about.
Right. Okay.
And
in a playful way.
In a playful way. I mean, he had me laughing all day. Like, here's another example. I had my cell phone with me, and he was like, "Oh, you're gonna take a selfie? You're gonna put it on Instagram?" He knew about Instagram. So I went to take the picture, and then I was like, oh, here, do you like it? I went to show him the picture. And so he snatched my phone away and started swiping through all of my other pictures, trying to find,
See if there was something sexy in it.
Yeah. And then he came across a photo of my mother when she was like 22 or something, and she was wearing a bathing suit. And so he was like, oh, who's this? I said, that's my mother. He said, let's call her. So I dialed my mother, Janice, and we called my mother. And
well, that's cool.
as soon as we got on the phone, she didn't know who it was because I just handed him the phone. And she was like, who is this? And he said, this is Joe Jackson. And he always said his first and last name, Joe Jackson. And then he said, I saw you in that bathing suit.
He starts out.
And she was like, what bathing suit?
That's hilarious.
Because, that picture was taken like 70 years ago,
Right.
maybe 60 years ago. So, but he was just so funny and so charming, and it was not a sleazy way. Let me get that straight. It was,
right. No, that's funny. That's a funny line.
Yeah.
I saw you in that bathing suit.
Yeah, I saw you in a bathing suit.
What? All right.
And
All right.
my mother was very flattered, because she's like in her 70s now, and he, was really complimentary towards her, and she loved him. He was so kind to her.
All right. I'm going to spend the rest of the day trying to reevaluate my Joe Jackson bias and try to forgive him.
He was just a funny guy. I wasn't there in Gary, Indiana, so I cannot say what that was like, but I can wholly testify for now.
Right.
In his 80s, he had become a kinder and gentler Joe Jackson, and so generous, so nice, and so thoughtful.
And forgiven pretty much by his kids, yes?
He was still very sad about Michael's death. He regretted not going to see him. He told me Michael had started calling for him to come, I guess, save him from the situation he was in, and he wanted Joe to come visit him so that I guess they could figure out how to get out of this situation. And Joe,
out of the
AEG, this is it. Michael felt like he had a lot of people around him that were not to be trusted, and that was true.
Why didn't I think most fans, because the residency, the Las Vegas residency is such a staple now. You get a deal at a hotel, and Madonna, I think, has done it. What's her name?
J-Lo, Britney Spears.
A lot of people, Britney Spears. A lot of people do. They go in, for X amount of months, a year.
Yeah.
And they live there, and
that would have been perfect for Michael.
Why? Yeah, that would have been the perfect fit.
I know in the old days, he always felt like Vegas meant the end of the road. Like you were old, you were washed up. Elvis did it. When Elvis did it.
Yeah, but he did. And it didn't really save him either.
No.
But he did do it.
Those were the bad Elvis years.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Michael thought in his mind. Like, I don't want to be that washed up Elvis in Vegas, although we all know that would have been the greatest thing ever for him.
Well, it's been rebranded from the Elvis days. It's been rebranded as a thing of, there's integrity in having a residency and going in and having your devoted fans have access to you.
It would have been great. Yeah, and Michael had a house in Vegas, and he was looking at this other huge house. He wanted to move back to Vegas in June 2009. That's what his goal was, to move back to Vegas. So I think it would have been perfect for him, and he wouldn't have had to travel.
My son is arriving. I'm going to hit pause real quick. Okay. My son is back with his mother, and he's back from his speech therapy. I'll talk a little bit about Jackson in a minute. Hold on a second.
Okay. I'm still here, guys.
Will you carry on? I'm going to greet my son. Maybe he'll say hello to us. Come on.
Okay.
Do you have any people you want to shout out to?
Anybody have any questions while Ted is away? Hi, Janice. Nice to see you, Mother. Hi. Ted's son is here.
There's a camera here. I know you're a big fan of seeing yourself. Sit down. Sit down right here. Just sit down for a second.
Get lower.
Sit down. You gotta sit down. There you are.
Hi. How are you? Good. How are you? We're live on
get
Facebook.
All right.
All right. Go that way. Ted's handsome son.
That's my son Jackson. All right.
How old is Jackson?
Jackson
now?
just turned. He's 15.
15.
Just turned 15 in
Named
April.
after Michael Jackson.
He's 14 now. I thought he's 15.
Ted.
Oh wow. Okay.
Hi, Tony Stewart.
Well, that's embarrassing.
Nikki Al, Peerdeman. Hi. He's all the way from Norway. I mean, not Norway, Netherlands.
Really?
Yeah.
We're back here now. We're back with the podcast. So that's my son Jackson. For those of you who don't know, he's has muscular ataxia, so he's nonverbal, and but he's smart as a whip, and a beautiful boy as you saw. So that's been one of the things I started the podcast. Reasons I started the podcast was having a special needs boy and learning to cope, which is what the podcast is ultimately about. Is I'll talk about life and moving forward, because I was just devastated to have a son with disabilities.
Has he always been that way since he was born?
Yeah. He got diagnosed when he was about 18 months old. That's when we noticed that he wasn't walking or forming words like his sister had. He's got a sister who's 18 months older. So that's where the podcast came from. And it's talking about coping and rationalizing, your worst fears and how to move past them and stay positive. Which is sort of
You've done that,
which
right?
I've tried. I certainly try every day. Which is what we're talking about now. Is about Michael and the relationship with his dad and.
Tony Stewart, who is on our Facebook Live podcast, says that he's from Atlanta and he's a single father raising 2 kids with sickle cell, so he understands. And Nikki Al has been in a wheelchair since he was a little boy. He was born with too little oxygen, so he also has disabilities, and he relates to you.
My support goes out to both of you. God bless you both. The struggle is real, and it's more than just the actual physical moving through the day. It's the mental. With that moment when you're in bed that I have every day, where I'm in bed and I have to convince myself that there's a reason to get out of bed, and that becomes the thing that grinds away. If you can't find that positive energy, that hopeful reason to get out of bed, that's the trick. Is to keep that on the table, and it's hard. Otherwise, you fall apart.
Yeah, I understand.
Otherwise, you fall apart. So anyway, all right. So Joe, stayed at Joe's.
So Joe calls my mother
and
flirts with her a little bit. He's still Joe Jackson. He may have been 87, 88, but he was still Joe Jackson, which is what made him lovable. He had a certain charm about him.
I'm going to investigate. I'm going to YouTube him and watch him a little closer, and because I really, like I said, once that story broke, I was just like, I no longer know you.
No, he. I think he totally loved all of his children. He just didn't know how to show it sometimes in the right way. But I saw a man there with lots of regrets. He really reminisced with me about the old days. He thought I was like young, like when I went there. He didn't realize I was as old as I am, so he didn't know that I was back. I remember the Jackson 5 days. He was like, you don't know what I've done. I was like, no, I do know. I do remember. And somehow we got on the subject of the Havenhurst house, the family house in Encino. And he told me that he was the one who found that house. It had a lot of trees or something. And
that was the first Jackson compound.
Right, in Encino. And he said he raised all of his boys there. And he's so proud of how, all of them turned out like they did. None of them were on drugs. They're all, if you meet any of the Jacksons, including the girls, they're all so polite. They're like the nicest people you will ever meet. Yeah,
that's what I say when I listen to Janet Jackson speak, and the poise, just the poise of her entire character. It's not artificial. That's who she is and how she's raised and how she conducts herself. There's no footage of Janet Jackson not being Janet Jackson.
Well, that's the other thing, that Motown sort of trained that whole family to always be on point when you're in front of the camera or when you're in the public. Treat your public like you would want to be treated.
Right.
So if they ever met fans, they were always the sweetest people. You will never hear any stories of any Jackson the boys at least, and Latoya too. Latoya's really nice, but
we'll talk about Latoya in a minute.
I love Latoya,
Oh,
but
God. Oh, God.
but you know, they're so polite, and that it all goes back to how they were raised. So Joseph and Catherine did something right.
I think that they get a lot of that temperament from their mom, because she's always been every time you see her, she's very,
So
she's
kind.
very poised.
Nicest woman you will ever meet.
I saw a video on Instagram or somewhere where Jan was talking to her fans about she just had the baby and she was going to lose some weight and get back, and Randy was off.
Yeah.
She goes, I'm going to have to still have a little weight to lose. Janet goes, Randy goes, it's more than a little.
Right.
And she didn't lose it. She just turned and was like,
She knows Randy.
I'm not talking to you, Randy.
Right.
Thank you, could you please, she was like.
That's that sisterly, brotherly relationship that they
But she didn't listen. She didn't go to this place.
But that's the
Don't
thing
make me
with
come
them.
over
Like,
there.
they all tease each other like that, and they get that from Joe because that's how he was. They are teasers.
Right.
Like Michael teased people relentlessly all day long. When I did his short film Ghost, he had an assistant named House, and he introduced me to House, and I wrote a lot about this in my book, and I was like, why is his name House? Is that his real name? And Michael said, oh, he didn't tell you why his name is House? And he called House over, and he was like, House, tell Shauna why your name is House. And he said, and when you do it, make sure you do it right here. He pinched my nose. And so I was like, House, so what's the deal here? And so House said, well, when I first met Michael, which was on the black or white set, he told me I had very bad breath. And he told me that my breath smelled like an outhouse.
Oh, wow.
And so from that moment on, Michael started calling him House, which was short for outhouse.
Oh, my God.
But in Michael's defense, Michael paid for House's teeth to get fixed, which
helped him?
solved the breath problem.
Okay.
So Michael paid all this money to get his teeth fixed so that he wouldn't have that outhouse breath.
Oh, my God. Well, God bless him. Now, I respect that, because that is what the world needs more of, is that kind of truthfulness. It's a hard thing to pull off, to be blunt.
I know.
Tell someone bluntly. Listen,
But Michael was blunt. He's a Virgo, or he was a Virgo. And he would just tell it like it was. And the thing about him, he was so detail-oriented. So you would see him looking at you, and he was just noticing everything. And Joseph was the same way. Because when he was telling me that he thought I was young, I was like, no, I remember the Jackson 5 days. I'm not as young as you think. And he said, oh, I was wondering, because I was looking at you and I saw one gray hair. And I was thinking, how old is she? This is Joe talking. I was like, really? Great. But he noticed it. And then I felt self-conscious after that, because I knew he was just studying every detail. But that's exactly how Michael was too.
Right.
You always had to be on point with Michael, because you would see him just like looking at
constantly
everything.
Doing the math. Doing the math.
Right.
Wow. Well, I think that kind of eye for detail, it showed in his work.
Oh Michael was so detail oriented. He would, if he was doing any project, he would look at the smallest of things that we wouldn't even notice. Like if he had a dance scene, I remember one time we were doing a dance number, or he was doing a dance number, and I was watching. And then when they were watching it on playback, everything was perfect except the dancer's socks. There was one dancer's socks that wasn't sparkling enough. And he was like, you see those socks over there? We got to do this again, because the socks just don't look right.
Wow.
And I hadn't even noticed any socks.
Wow.
But he did. So
wow.
that's what made him the superstar that he was.
Well, it's a sad ending and a sad story, and you just wish that he was still with us. And there's here's a debate that goes on the internet, is that there are people who want to debate the greatness of Prince versus Michael Jackson? Have you ever noticed any of those posts?
When I was in junior high school, there were the Prince fans and there were the Michael fans, and you couldn't be both. So we would always have fights, Michael and Prince fans, because mostly when you were a Prince fan, you were a certain personality, and if you were a Michael fan, you were a different personality. Michael fans tended to like the innocent stuff, Disneyland, Mickey Mouse, you know. Prince, he was a little bit more risque and controversial at that time.
He did several concerts in fishnet hose on his own, wearing his own fishnet hose. In the beginning, he was
extremely out there.
Any man willing to wear boots and fishnet hose is definitely not going to Disneyland.
Right. But Michael was. Michael's idols were Mickey Mouse, and you know, he hung with Emmanuel Lewis. This was innocence, and people who were of that same mindset, you know, maybe we were young or just an innocent nature, we gravitated towards Michael.
Yes.
So there was always a difference in the two sets of fan bases. But I mean, I remember the last time I saw Michael really was I was living in Vegas. I was working as David Copperfield's assistant, the magician.
A call?
No.
Oh, okay.
And so that time, not only was Michael there in Vegas, but so was Prince. He had a residency at, I think it was the Rio. So I went to see Prince with David Copperfield. He had set it up for us to go see Prince and have like almost like a private show. It was us and like some of Prince's friends. We were at a restaurant, and Prince was just literally standing right in front of me, performing this entire instrumental show. He didn't sing at all. He just was standing there playing his guitar, you know, just all instrumentals for like hours. And it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I was sitting right there in the front because I was with David Copperfield, so we had like the best seats ever. So Prince came over and sat next to me and started playing his guitar, just like literally right here.
What did he smell like?
I don't remember.
He
smelled good.
Yeah, I'm sure it smelled. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no way he doesn't always smell like something fabulous.
Yeah. So, and then he gave me his guitar pick. And that was 2009.
Wow.
And then like maybe 2 weeks later is when I saw Michael. Michael came to see me at David Copperfield's show. And that was the last time I saw Prince like actually in person. Like I saw Prince later on at the forum after that in concert, but that was the last time I was actually able to like touch Prince and talk to him. And then 2 weeks later was the last time I had seen Michael. And that was all within a 2-week period at the end of 2009. I mean, it was 2006 going into 2007. Okay. And so those were magical times when we had both Prince and Michael, you know, still in their, it wasn't considered their prime, but they were still in their prime because they were still so talented and just really passionate about their work. Yeah. Prince would get on stage and play for hours and hours till 4 or 5 in the morning, and because he loved, you know, being a musician.
I saw him do one of those. He did when I lived in Chicago. He did a concert at the big stadium, and then at like 2 in the morning, he was at this little dive bar with his whole band. This little bar that had a little stage, and he was there. And we waited out in the cold at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And we went in there and he played for like an hour and a half. And it was amazing. Amazing.
At, at a previous Prince concert in Vegas, he did one of those shows. It started at like 3 in the morning. It literally started at 3 in the morning. And so I was there. I happened to be there alone for some reason. Somehow I was working with Magic Johnson at the time, so I went in with him, so that's how we got the VIP treatment. Then somehow I got separated from him, and I ended up being there alone. And I came across this guy who was also walking around alone, and he came over to me, and I looked twice, and I was like, he looks familiar. And he reached out his hand, and he said, "Hi, my name's David Cassidy." And he was like, "What's your name?" And
Partridge Family.
Partridge Family, David Cassidy. And
I was a big fan of that show when I was
me
a kid
too, in the
Yeah.
70s, in the
Yeah.
good old 70s. And I guess he was in some sort of show in Vegas during that time. And he saw that I was alone, and he was alone. So he was like, let's be alone together. So we ended up spending that whole night at the Prince show together. And we were just walking around, and he was really excited to see Prince. You know, he took me down to the front of the stage. And the funny thing is, no one recognized him. Like, no one knew who David Cassidy was.
Well, he aged out of that. You know, he was a really pretty young boy when he was a teenager, and he aged out of that. He was not unattractive, but he just wasn't that pretty boy anymore.
Right.
Which is what happens to most child stars.
We all get older.
Yeah, yeah.
Sadly.
Some people age gracefully and maintain their look, and then some people age out of it and they don't resemble that thing that made them famous in the first place.
Yeah.
He's one of those people.
Yeah, sadly. But I mean, he was still in good shape. And he was another, and he recently passed away as well.
Yeah, he did.
6 months or so ago.
I used to work at Hal's Bar and Grill down in Venice. I was a bouncer there for a long time. And maybe it's been about 10 years now, but he would come in there and get blasted. He was, I think, toward the end he was getting in trouble for being drunk. And
he would come to Hal's in Venice?
Yeah.
Wow.
But, he got in trouble a couple times for DUIs because he was just, toward the end there, he was just drinking all the time.
I know. Yeah, he was drinking quite a bit that night, but nice guy.
Yeah.
And, in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, this is David Cassidy, this idol. I used to have him on my wall when I was, a child. And so everything always ends up coming full circle. That's the crazy thing.
Fame is a tricky thing. It's unless you, like I said, unless you can, have people around you that will help you stay grounded. I imagine in his case, like most teen or child stars, is that you've been to the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Michael's been to the mountaintop like 3 different times. He was there when he was 7. You know what I mean? With ABC and all that, and then he was there again with the Jacksons. Yeah, the Jacksons had a few hits without Jermaine. You know what I mean?
The Triumph. I was listening to the Triumph album last night,
right.
And rediscovered it. That and the Destiny album are such.
Everybody thought they were dead after Jermaine
masterpieces.
left, and after that, they changed labels and all that. Everyone just thought they wrote them off and said, well. And so Michael had that, that success, and then he topped that success with Off the Wall.
Right.
So I think that once you've ascended so many times to the top of the mountain, the fear of not being on that mountain starts to be a problem for you too,
And Michael used to talk a lot about his childhood days. I remember one time he was telling me about, he was talking about his father, and he said, remember, I don't know how we got on this subject, but he was talking about, he said to me, remember those, what were they? No, playing cards that had women in like bathing suits on them, and somehow you would do something to them and they would become completely naked. Yeah. And he said his father would do that with them. He would like show them that kind of
cards.
Stuff. Yeah, those cards.
Come here, boy, let me show you something.
Yeah. But he remembered that with glee. It wasn't like a bad thing. And I was like, well, I don't remember cards, but I remember they had like ink pens,
right.
And you would like shake them up or something, and then
you would hold them this way and then turn them a certain way, then the clothes would come off and
right.
be a naked woman under there. Yeah,
exactly. And Michael's like, yes, I remember that too. So we all had like the same childhoods in the 70s. The 70s was a great decade.
Well, the internet has made nudity and back then, finding my dad's Playboys and stealing them, that was the height of mischievousness, and deviant behavior. Just finding them and then going through. But now, it's nothing.
Now
you pick
it's
up
nothing.
that phone, you Google any type of craziness. You Google it, and Google says,
and there it is.
What do you do? You want to see that?
Even like our children's idols, like Ariana Grande or Grande, however you say it.
Yeah.
She's on Twitter cursing up a storm, like in all of her tweets. And she was even on the Grammys one year I saw her, and she said the F word. And I was like, really?
So many little girls love you.
I know.
And this is what you're doing. Teach them.
It's because we're from a different generation. Maybe we're out of touch, but that bothers me.
It bothers me too. It bothers me too.
It should.
Just to go political for a moment, I'm not a Trump fan, but even when Bob De Niro comes on the Tonys and blurts out, F Trump, even though I agree with that, I'm like, there's families.
Exactly.
There's
this is
children
not the
and families.
time or the place. This is a
children,
award show.
There are families watching this show right now
Yeah.
who just love theater.
Right.
Me and my kids just sat down to watch this because we love theater. And now
Here's
here
someone
you
saying
come.
the F word.
Here
Robert
you come
De
with
Niro.
that. Then I have to sit down and explain to my 7-year-old why you're blurting that crap out. So that's that type of civility.
Learning not to swear. They need to learn not to swear.
Learning not to swear.
Ted.
Learning not to swear.
That's what needs to happen.
We need to understand that. I'm glad. I understand you feel that way and you want to be active, Bob. But you gotta also respect that there's people out there that I just came for the popcorn and the show. I didn't come for all that.
Another thing, getting back to Joe Jackson, it's been an overwhelming week because, June 25th was Michael's death anniversary, and then 2 days later, here comes Joe. And I had so many memories with Joe, and the thing that made it even more just poignant when I visited him, he had just had like 3 heart attacks in a row.
What?
Yeah, and like a stroke. He was in bad shape, like right before I got there. He had been in the hospital, and he was on his deathbed, basically, not long before I went to visit him. And
But when you got there, he suffered all that just
before I got there. He had just gotten out of the hospital. I'm not sure how long before. Yeah, but they had said there were false rumors going around that he had died then. And
you gave him the strength to go and stand in your room at 3 o'clock in the morning. You deserve some kind of check for that.
So there were rumors saying he had died, and he had been on his deathbed because remember he went to Brazil or something, and something happened and he had a heart attack. That's all I'll say. He said it was because of women. There were too many women.
I'm sure that's probably close to the truth.
But anyway, so we were sitting in his backyard. He used to go to his backyard. There was he had chairs in his backyard and a sofa. And sometimes he would be missing, and I'd look outside, and he'd just be sitting there staring, like, at his swimming pool or out into space. And I knew he was just reminiscing on his life and the things that he had gone through, because it was just so quiet and peaceful outside there. Mm-hmm. So I went out there, and we talked, and he told me that he was like, yeah, I died recently. I was in the hospital. And I was on my, in bed, and I literally died. I flatlined.
Wow.
And I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, no, that's not true. He said, yes, it's true. They told me I died. And I said, wow, so what did you see? Tell me, I want to know everything. What was it like to die? And I said, what did you see? He said, lots of women. I said, well, at least that means you went to heaven.
Exactly.
And all he could do was laugh.
Oh, man.
And that's absolutely true. That's what happened. And that was his experience with a near-death experience, or actual death experience.
That's what I would hope for, is that when I go, is the things that I cherish or that bring me joy on every level would be the things that I would see.
Yeah. I think he had gotten a little tired of that by that point, because he was telling me that he had his birthday party maybe a month before I went to see him. He had a birthday party. Okay. And he said it made him tired because all these women were like coming at him, flirting with him, and he said it was just too much for him. Well,
the best thing about seeing them on your deathbed, I imagine, is that they're not pestering you.
Right.
They're just there for you to gander and to wonder about. It's just, at my age, that's what I prefer about women now, is just to have them
at a car.
Oh, yes. I don't really want to talk to you. I just keep it moving. But so okay. Oh, we were going to mention Brighton because
Brighton
we almost had
McClure.
a third, but he wasn't able to join us
Yeah,
today.
Brighton James.
Brighton James. Now Brighton is
Brighton.
on Young and the Restless.
Brighton James, who's on Young and the Restless, he plays Devon.
Neil Winter's son.
Neil Winter's son, who's our friend Christoph St. John's.
We both know. So
co-worker.
He almost came. He was invited.
Yeah, he was going to come.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So now he's been in the show business a long time, Brighton, as well as Christoph. What do you know about Brighton?
Wow. In my former life, I used to be an actress, and I did Family Matters, which was a show that Brighton used to be on when he was about 5. He played Little Richie on Family Matters with Urkel and Eddie Winslow, that show. And so I had like a one-liner on Family Matters. I was working for Sandy Gallen, Michael Jackson's manager at that time.
Okay.
But they always let me go out on auditions. So I was able to have that job and also be an actress, which was just the perfect setup.
And you were on quite a few sitcoms.
I was,
I've seen some of the footage, and you were busy.
It was a great time, the 90s for us.
You were busy.
So I did Family Matters, and I met Brighton, who was Little Richie. He was about 5, I'd say. And he took me to his dressing room, and in his dressing room was covered with Michael all over his walls. Posters, everything. And come to find out, he was this huge Michael Jackson fan. And his parents, told me, Brighton's one dream is to meet Michael. That's just his idol. And so I was like, well, funny enough, I work with Michael. I work at his manager's office. And they were like, what? Are you kidding me? I said, yeah. And I said, you know what? Michael would love Brighton because Brighton was just the cutest child. Yeah. And any child, Michael...
Curly, didn't he have a
curly hair,
afro kind of thing?
And could dance just like Michael, even at 5. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my best to make this happen. I'm going to, tell Michael about you. And hopefully, you guys can meet. So I asked Brighton to write Michael a letter, and I would give it to Michael. So Brighton, in his little 5-year-old writing, wrote the cutest letter to Michael, and I gave it to Michael's office, and they immediately gave it to Michael. And like the next day, Michael called him.
What?
Yes, he was like, Brighton, I got your letter. And also during that time, Michael did an appearance. It was his very first performance for the Dangerous album. The album hadn't even come out yet, so no one had even heard the songs. He performed on MTV 10, which was the 10th anniversary of MTV. So that shows you how long ago that was.
Michael was the first black artist that MTV ever played.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Billy Jean, the video, I think was the first video MTV played.
And they've been around for a little while at that point.
Yeah.
Well, by the time they finally played the video,
there were no black. It was so racist back then.
How did you manage to be around this long?
People don't know what black artists had to go through.
Yeah.
So Michael performed on this MTV 10, and it was right here in Santa Monica at the Santa Monica airport. And I had just started working for Sandy Gallen, Michael's manager, but I had the honor to be in charge of Michael's guest list. What? So I could have put you on there, Ted.
If I'd have known you back then,
Dad,
I would have been like, listen, if you don't put me on that list, girl.
So I, put Michael's guest list together, the VIP guest list, and I put Brighton on there. So I was like, Brighton, here's your chance. This is it, you're gonna meet Michael. So I put him and his parents on the VIP guest list, and we went to the show, and Michael had a meet and greet after his performance. And so I was in charge of that too, to, gather up all of Michael's guests and take them on stage to meet Michael. And so Brighton went up there, he met Michael, they took a picture, which I posted not long ago on my Facebook. And from that point on, Michael and Brighton became the best of friends.
Very cool.
Yeah, Michael would not long after that, Michael started going through all of those crazy problems with the scandal. The accusations. Right. And Michael started calling me, and, he was sounding so sad and depressed. And each conversation, he always would say, tell Brighton I said hi. make sure you tell Brighton I said hi. And then like if he would call, sometimes he'd call Brighton during that time, and Michael would call me and tell me the little cute conversations they had. And you know, this was just genuine. This wasn't publicized. This wasn't anything. It wasn't anything bad. It was all innocent. And I wanted to let people know. I wrote something about this on my social media. I just want people to know that this was genuinely who Michael was. He loved kids. It wasn't anything bad about it. It wasn't anything negative. It was just all innocent. He just loved their innocence and being around them. They made him happy. So when he was going through that very bad time, sometimes we didn't know if he would make it through the night. That's how bad it was. He was clinging on to, you know, kids on the phone, just hearing their voice. It made him happy, and it was all innocent. And he appreciated people like Brighton, kids like Brighton, who were just so genuine and didn't have any sort of agendas, you know. That was important to him because he was surrounded by vultures.
Right.
Kids didn't have that quality about them. They were innocent. They innocently loved him for who he was, and that's why he loved being around kids. And I totally understand that.
Right.
You know, and even with me, he and I bonded because I was the same way. You know, when he'd call, I'd say, "I love you. I miss you. I can't wait to see you again." And he really appreciated that.
Right. It's a wonderful feeling to be around people. And that's one of the things about being a dad, you know, if you're, you know, being a parent, is that your children, you know, love you.
Yeah.
They don't know what your failures are. They don't care what your failures are, your shortcomings, or they're fans. They're fans of you, and they want you to be happy, and they want to be happy in your presence.
And you're just dad to them. You're not Ted Light, the podcast star, the actor.
Yeah. So
you're
exactly,
dad.
Exactly, and that's, you know, and I think that sadly, I think he came into parenting, you know, late in his life. Probably it would have been more beneficial to him if he started his family a little earlier than he might have been. They might have been the thing that grounded him a little.
That's true.
Sooner before he had gone so far, kind of out of his mind. And I mean that in the kindest way possible, because I love him. But anybody who wants to argue that he didn't kind of go a little nuts at the end.
Well, I think, you know, with him, he couldn't have had a family earlier than that, or even a wife. Even when he had the wife, it wasn't time. He wasn't ready because he was so singularly focused on his career.
Right.
You don't understand. He was just so laser sharp. His focus was on having the best album of all time, topping Thriller. That was what he kept wanting to do.
That's a curse.
It was a curse.
Success. That's one of I keep going back to that. That's one of the things about success is that, and every artist, every football player, every athlete, everyone is chasing their own Thriller. Mm-hmm. Everyone is. They want to have that pinnacle of success, and the downside is that if you get it,
you're always chasing it.
What do you do? What do you do
like
once you get
chasing the
it?
dragon.
Yeah, once you get it, now I finally got it. Now I got to top it. And very few people go, I've already had the best album in the world. I'm done. I'm going to go sit down now.
But is that the way to live? Like, if you stop trying to achieve things, you get depressed. So you have to have something to aspire to. Yeah. So that kept him going.
That's true. That's true. And that's a very good question. It's like the dragon who's chasing his own tail, and
it's like a drug addict.
Yeah,
you're always chasing that dragon. You want that first high that you got. I wouldn't know anything about this, but this is what I've heard. Yeah. You're chasing that first initial high that you got. It's called chasing the dragon, and that's why you just get deeper and deeper, and you never achieve it.
I would have told him if I had his ear and had any influence with him, it would be Michael. You know, the likelihood that you're going to catch lightning in a bottle twice, the lightning that you caught with Thriller, you know, it's very unlikely. I'm not saying try, but don't try. I'm saying
you would have been fired.
Yeah. Let's just try to crank out the best music we can crank out and not try to catch that, you know, because you're going to drive yourself nuts.
No.
You're going to drive yourself nuts.
No, like every conversation he was like, we got to change the world. You know, this has got to be the biggest and the best anyone has ever seen. Biggest promotion, biggest everything.
You got to look at history and go back and look at pop music, look at all kinds of music, and ask yourself, you know, how many
But he changed history
He
once,
did.
so he knew he could do it again.
Okay. Yeah,
Those
I
are
think
his
Mozart
feelings.
would tell you, listen, you only get one or two.
Well, he felt like, hey, if I did this with Thriller, it's possible. And when you think about it, anything is possible. It's just he had such a obsession with topping it that it became a curse.
I think Dangerous is not Thriller, but Dangerous is a good album.
It's better. It's better than Thriller to me.
Okay, well, this conversation is over.
You like Thriller that much?
This conversation came to a really abrupt ending. I feel awkward now.
You don't. No, Off the Wall is your album.
Off the Wall is a great album. It is a great album, no question. But Thriller, pound for pound, come on.
No, Dangerous.
Really?
Yep, all Dangerous.
Is that the way you made me feel? And
that's bad.
That's bad.
Don't forget about the bad album.
For Remember the Time. Is
Dangerous.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, my bad.
I mean, Give In to Me is on Dangerous, so that'll always be my favorite album. To me, Give In to Me is my all-time favorite Michael song.
Okay. Well,
Tad's favorite song is Working Day and Night.
Working Day and Night. That's from the Off the Wall album, which is, I think, is just a great. It's also great. So that's what I'm saying. He was from Off the Wall on through Dangerous. Nobody, I don't think that even the Beatles could compare album per album from that span.
But that's because he strived to be the best. If he had just said, well, I'm never going to top Thriller, so why even bother? He's
not like all right, I made the spaghetti here, just eat it.
Yeah.
Just eat it. Shut
he
up
had to at least try. I remember when the History album it hadn't come out yet, and he came to our office for a marketing meeting, and he had written notes from the meeting. It was him and all of the Epic top executives. And on the note, which I still have, I have it in my book. I posted a copy of it in my book. On the note, he said, must be the biggest and the best promotion that we've ever had. Michael Jackson, history, past, present. That was what was on his mind in that history meeting, that it has to be the biggest and the best ever. And that was always what was on his mind.
I love him, and I'm sorry. I miss him. I'm sorry he's gone. I wish that he was, I wish that he was surrounded with you and people like you who cared about him, because I think he would probably still be alive. I think that by the time he got to the place where he was being, getting this intravenous sleep agent, that he was using, which was just completely dangerous.
Yeah. And dangerous, see?
Completely, it's just such a deadly choice for him to make. And then he hired somebody because he was doing something that was, not advised. And
so he had to get someone shady who would agree to do it.
Yeah, did something that was borderline illegal. He had to get somebody shady to do it. And the problem then is if you're hiring shady people to help you, then they're not. They're not
the top. Yeah. Because he had doctors, like top-notch doctors, and they were like, "No, Michael, that's dangerous.
I'm not going to do this.
We're not going to do this.
This anesthetic is so controlled, and it's controlled for a reason. And even people who are having surgery and using it legally are at peril.
That's true.
That's the thing. You're using this the right way is dangerous. Mm-hmm. So using it just to get a good night's sleep.
And how are you going to get a good night's sleep from that? That's not even real sleep,
No, I don't think it is either. I don't think it is either.
Yeah.
But again, there was nobody in his corner who could say, you know what? I will come in there and punch you in your sleepy face while you asleep if I find out you're doing this.
I'm going to sneak in there. I'm going to come watch you sleep.
I'm just watching you sleep and I punch you in your face because I thought you were being stupid.
Right. That was his doctor's.
At an hour. We're actually at an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, my God.
I got to wrap this up on my end. Brighton, I hope you can come and talk the next time. I would love to talk to you.
Yeah, Young and the Restless is still going strong.
Yes, I watched the show religiously for you and for Christoph, and I don't know, Brighton, if you're watching this, I don't know what is going through your head if you think you can have a healthy, happy baby with
Hillary.
With Hillary. Because Hillary's nuts.
I heard that Hillary's leaving the show, though.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't know what they're going to do with her.
I don't know what they're going to do either, but having babies with her, and that was one of the things I was mad about. I called Christoph. I was like, your character should be fuming at this idea.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they're already, because Christoph was married to this woman at first. Neil Winters was married to this woman. Then
Hillary.
Hillary. Then she had an affair with his son, and then they broke up. And then he married the son married his dad's wife, which is just that soap opera crazy. So, but then they broke up, and now years later she wants to have a baby with her ex-husband, his son. And I would be like, your character should be on the warpath.
Yeah.
And the writers, for some reason,
I think they changed writers, so it's like a different regime or whatever they call it.
It's like, what planet are you writers on where the father would be like, hell no, you're not having no baby with this crazy woman.
Well, what are you going to do? Like, they have to have a show.
Yeah,
So if
the show should be grounded in just a little more reality. Because I know I would be like, I will set everything on fire if you get this woman pregnant. But anyway, all right, we got to go. We got to wrap this up on my end.
Darn.
Thanks for listening, everybody who follows the podcast. Where can people find you on the internet if they want to follow you?
You can go to my website, ShanaMangatal.com, or it's also michaelandmebook.com. So it's Michael and then AND me book BOOK.com. My book, Michael and Me, can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Kindle, Audible.com, also on Instagram and Facebook under Shana Mangatal.
There you go. So if you haven't gotten this or haven't read this, you need to do it. You need to do it. Michael and Me. So listen, thanks for listening, everybody on my end who follows the podcast. Thank you for your support. You know where to find us. If you don't know where to find us, to subscribe, we're on iHeartRadio. We're on Stitcher. We're on any of the Apple platforms, iTunes platforms. TuneIn is another place where you can find the podcast if you're looking for other places. Go to Google Ted Lied, and all the appropriate links will pop up for you to choose where you want to subscribe. All right, thanks for listening. I love you guys. Try to be good.